One afternoon, my old friend Frank, another retired firefighter, stopped by. He carried coffee and a newspaper. He pointed to Emily's photograph on the front page. "Look at her, Will. Businesswoman of the Year nominee." I smiled proudly. Frank looked at me. "Does she visit much?" There was a long silence. Finally I answered, "She's busy." Frank didn't believe me. Neither did I. A week later, everything changed. I went downtown for my yearly medical checkup. After leaving the clinic, I decided to stop at a small cafe. As I waited for my coffee, I heard two women talking behind me. One of them held a business magazine featuring Emily's face. "She's incredible," one woman said. "I heard she lost both of her parents years ago." The other nodded sadly. "Yes, that's what she said in an interview. She built her empire completely alone." The coffee cup slipped from my hand. It shattered across the floor. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Lost. Both. Parents? I was standing there, alive. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone could hear it. The waitress asked if I was okay. I couldn't answer. I simply walked outside. The cold Chicago wind struck my face. But it wasn't as cold as the truth I'd just heard. My daughter, the little girl I had raised alone after her mother's death, had told the entire world that I no longer existed. And I still had no idea why. That night, I didn't sleep. The words I had overheard at the cafe kept echoing in my mind. She lost both of her parents years ago. I stared at the old family photograph sitting beside my bed. Sarah smiled from the picture. Little Emily sat on my shoulders, laughing as if life would never change. I whispered, "What happened to our little girl?" The following morning, I tried convincing myself it had all been a misunderstanding. Maybe the women had heard false rumors. Maybe a journalist had written the wrong information. Maybe Emily never actually said it. I needed the truth. I turned on my old laptop, the same one Emily had bought me nearly 10 years earlier. It took almost 5 minutes to start. Finally, I searched her name. Emily Carter. Thousands of results appeared. Business magazines, television interviews, podcasts, award nominations. I clicked the first interview. Emily sat confidently across from a famous television host. She looked elegant in a navy blue suit. Diamond earrings sparkled beneath the studio lights. The host smiled warmly. "Emily, millions admire your journey. Tell us about your family." Emily lowered her eyes for a second. Then she sighed. "I lost both of my parents years ago. Everything I built completely on my own." The audience applauded. I didn't hear another word. My hands shook so badly that I accidentally closed the laptop. The room fell silent, not because there was no sound, but because something inside me had broken. For the first time in my life, I cried because of my own child. Not loudly, just quietly, like an old man who had finally run out of strength. A week passed. Emily never called, never texted. Life continued as though nothing had happened. Every morning I watered Sarah's roses, fed the birds in the backyard, read the newspaper, visited the local grocery store. Everyone knew me there. "Morning, Mr. Carter. How are you today?" Simple conversations. Honest people. No one pretending I didn't exist. One afternoon my neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, knocked on my door. She was 80 years old but still walked faster than most young people. She handed me a large white envelope. This came to my mailbox by mistake. The return address belonged to one of the biggest hotels in Chicago. Inside was a glossy invitation. The National Business Excellence Awards Gala. Emily Carter, nominee for Businesswoman of the Year. The ceremony would take place in 3 weeks. Thousands of business leaders. National television coverage. I smiled sadly. She hadn't invited me. The envelope had simply been delivered to the wrong address. Still, for several minutes, I couldn't stop looking at her photograph printed inside. She looked so confident, so successful, so far away. That evening Frank visited again. He noticed the invitation on my kitchen table. "You going?" I laughed quietly. "Don't be ridiculous." Frank folded his arms. "Why not?" "Because she doesn't want me there." He looked directly into my eyes. "Will, are you sure?" I nodded. "I think my daughter buried me years ago." Frank remained silent. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Sometimes people don't need revenge. They only need the truth to stand in the same room. His words stayed with me. A few days later, I received another surprise. This time, a phone call. Hello, is this Mr. William Carter? Yes, my name is Lisa Morgan. I'm a journalist with American Business Weekly. We're preparing a special feature about Emily Carter. I'd love to ask you a few questions about raising such an inspiring daughter. For a brief moment, I almost smiled. Someone still remembered I existed. Of course, I replied softly. Lisa asked about Emily's childhood, her school years, her dreams, her mother. I answered every question honestly. Then, there was a long pause. Finally she asked, Mr. Carter, can I ask something personal? Go ahead. I've interviewed Emily 3 times. Each time, she said she had no surviving family. Silence. Neither of us spoke. After several seconds, Lisa whispered, I didn't know you were alive. I closed my eyes. I am. She sounded heartbroken. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. The interview ended. But 2 days later, Lisa called again. Mr. Carter, I can't publish your interview. Why? My editor removed every mention of you. He said Emily's self-made orphan story attracts more readers. I thanked her anyway. After hanging up, I realized something frightening. It wasn't just one lie anymore. It had become a brand. A carefully crafted image, one that made millions admire my daughter. Another week passed. One rainy afternoon, I decided to visit the old fire station where I'd worked for decades. Most of the younger firefighters didn't know me, but Captain Hernandez did. He hugged me tightly. Good to see you, old hero. We shared coffee, laughed about old memories. Before leaving, he handed me a framed photograph. It showed my retirement ceremony. Standing beside me was Emily. She had her arm around my shoulder. She looked proud, happy. Captain Hernandez smiled. You know, she cried that day. Said you were the greatest father in the world. I stared at the picture for a long time. How could someone who once loved me so deeply pretend I had never existed? That night, I placed the photograph beside Sarah's picture. Then I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront Emily. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to expose her on television. If she wanted to forget me, that was her choice, but I would attend the award ceremony. Not to embarrass her, not to destroy her career, only to hear, with my own ears, whether she would tell the lie one more time. If she spoke the truth, I'd quietly leave. No one would ever know I had been there. But if she looked into thousands of faces, and declared herself an orphan again, then perhaps, for the first time in years, she would have to look into the eyes of the father, who never stopped loving her. The night of the awards ceremony arrived faster than I expected. For most people, it was just another glamorous event. For me, it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. One step forward and everything could change forever. One step back and I could spend the rest of my life wondering what might have happened. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror. The same mirror Sarah and I had bought nearly 40 years ago. My reflection stared back at me. Gray hair, wrinkles, tired eyes, a navy blue suit that hadn't been worn in years. I adjusted my tie and smiled sadly. Well, old man, I whispered. Let's see what the truth looks like. Before leaving, I stopped by Sarah's photograph. As always, I touched the frame gently. Wish me luck. For a moment, I imagined hearing her voice. Be brave, William. I picked up my coat and walked out the door. The ceremony was being held at the Grand Regency Hotel in downtown Chicago, one of the most luxurious hotels in the city. As I approached the entrance, expensive cars lined the street. Reporters stood behind velvet ropes. Camera flashes lit up the night. Men in designer suits, women wearing gowns worth more than my first car. It felt like an entirely different world. Emily's world. For a second, I considered turning around. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I didn't belong here. Then I remembered all the years I'd spent running into burning buildings. If I could face fire, I could face this. Inside, the ballroom looked magnificent. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Golden lights reflected off polished marble floors. Hundreds of guests filled the room. Business leaders, politicians, celebrities, people whose names appeared in newspapers every day. I found my seat near the front. A seat I had purchased myself. No special invitation, no backstage access, just another guest. The ceremony began. Awards were presented, speeches were made, applause echoed throughout the ballroom. But I barely heard any of it. My eyes kept searching for one person. Emily. Then I saw her, and for a moment, I forgot everything. She looked exactly like her mother. The same smile, the same eyes, the same graceful way of walking. She wore an elegant emerald green dress. Her hair rested softly on her shoulders. Everyone seemed drawn to her. People shook her hand. Photographers followed her. Executives competed for her attention. She looked like someone who owned the entire room. Yet something seemed different, subtle, almost invisible. She smiled constantly, but her eyes looked tired, as if carrying a weight no one else could see. A voice interrupted my thoughts. "Mr. Carter?" I turned. Standing beside me was a young woman holding a notebook. It was Lisa, the journalist. "You came," she said. I nodded. "So did you." She smiled. "I had a feeling tonight might become important." We talked quietly while guests settled into their seats. Then Lisa surprised me. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "If Emily walked over right now and apologized, what would you do?" I didn't answer immediately. The truth took time. Finally I said, "I'd hug her." Lisa looked shocked. "That's it?" I smiled sadly. "She's still my daughter." Lisa lowered her eyes. For a moment she seemed emotional. Then she whispered, "You're a better person than most people." I wasn't sure about that. I just knew life was too short for hate. An hour later, the biggest award of the night approached. The ballroom lights dimmed. A giant screen illuminated the stage. The announcer's voice echoed through the hall. "And now, the award for Businesswoman of the Year." Applause erupted. My heart began pounding. The finalists appeared on the screen, one by one. Then Emily's photograph filled the room. The audience cheered louder than before. Clearly she was the favorite. The presenter opened the envelope, smiled, then spoke the words everyone expected. "The winner is..." A dramatic pause. "Emily Carter." The room exploded with applause. People stood immediately. Some even whistled. Camera flashes burst from every direction. Emily covered her mouth in surprise. Tears filled her eyes. She hugged several people, then slowly walked toward the stage. The audience remained standing, cheering, celebrating, admiring. And despite everything, I felt proud, because she had worked hard, because she was talented, because she was my daughter. Emily reached the podium. The golden trophy shimmered beneath the lights. She took a deep breath. The room became silent. Thousands of eyes focused on her, including mine. She smiled. "Thank you." Applause. She waited, then continued. "This award means more than words can express." Her voice trembled slightly. "I've spent years building my company, years overcoming obstacles, years proving that anything is possible.